The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
My name is Jasmine, and I am a recovering drug addict.
My name is Richie Farrell, aka the Old White Junkie.
And we are your hosts for Exit Team Nashua.
Our mission is to bring recovery into the living room.
Last year, over 72,000 Americans died of an accidental overdose.
That's almost 200 Americans every single day.
We will bring you guests with real-life experiences with addiction and recovery. Welcome to Exit Team Nashua.
Welcome everyone to Exit Team Nashua. My name's Jessie and I will be your host this evening. Tonight I have asked Kyle to join us. Thank you for coming, Kyle.
Absolutely.
Yeah, taking the time out of your schedule. You know, I know it's hard to get here, especially on a work day. So thank you for coming.
Yeah, absolutely. No problem. I'm honored to be here. So
good. Well, we're glad to have you.
thank you.
You know, so I told you a little bit about our show, and we like to share our experience, strength, and hope pretty much, you know, give people an insight into what, you know, addiction and recovery looked like for us. Mm-hmm. So why don't you tell us who you are and where you're from?
Okay. Well, I'm Kyle. For me, I grew up north, so I'm from like a really small town, Berlin, New Hampshire.
Yeah.
I went to Gorham High, even smaller town. So it's, you know, my graduating class had 40 kids in it.
Seriously?
Yeah, and I ranked 40.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't really do homework, so.
Yeah. But you graduated.
I graduated high school because I
Okay.
was really good at sports.
Okay.
And they're like, we got to get this kid out of our town.
Yeah.
So let's push him along.
Okay.
So I grew up in an area that didn't have much to do, probably. Not really much like opportunity for work or anything after school. I grew up probably, for me, I used to tell everyone like I thought I grew up normal because I assumed everyone went through the same things I went through.
Okay.
So for me, like normal was a life being raised and being riddled with, you know, verbal, physical, and sexual abuse. Mm-hmm. And to me, I looked at everyone else. If you didn't suffer or experience that, then you were the
different.
outcast.
Yeah.
You were different. So I automatically assumed everyone like went through something similar. I kind of always made my reality everyone's entertainment. Mm-hmm. I'm always going to beat you to the punch of like throwing out my dirty laundry or like using my pain. So you can't use it against me. If I put out,
you get out in front of it.
Yeah.
You get out in front of it.
If I put it out there before people, like they can't use it against me. I owned it. Like this is what's happened to me.
Yeah.
And for me, like it was tough growing up. I always knew I was the problem growing up. I just didn't know there was a way to fix me. My parents were not close. They didn't teach me how to love. They didn't teach me coping skills that like deal with life.
Yeah.
So I didn't have like the proper education of like how to like become a man and, you know, deal with these kind of things. Like I suffered from so much trauma and it was just riddled with fear my whole life. Like so I didn't find what I needed at home with my parents. They split up at 10 years old. They were very toxic together, very, very, they didn't get along, a lot of fighting. You know, I've seen a lot of that. So I'm the oldest out of all my siblings.
How many siblings?
So I have 5 altogether.
Okay.
Yeah. And for me, like I was angry. I was angry and I had a lot of fear. I was mad at my mom. She had me at 17 years old. My dad was never around. I don't know which was worse, him not being around or around. Like
Right.
So I just went through life always attracting to others. Like I attracted to other people's families that, you know, seemed normal, that had that love and care. I made friends with a lot of people. I would go out and create my own family because I didn't grow up fortunate. Like I grew up like kind of poor and didn't have much. You know, there was never anything in the fridge. I was a grown boy, always hungry. There was never anything. My mom was very vicious with her words and very abusive at times. So it was very uncomfortable to be at home. But for me, I was good at like surviving. So like I was able to be whoever I needed to be to to get people to love me or like me. And, that's still a character defect or a trait of mine till this day that surfaces a lot. But for me, so I created what I needed. And at times it was spending, weeks at someone else's house. Like I remember moving in with my teacher from high school for a while just to get away from, because people were that willing to take me in, always, put out that potential word and always like believed in me before I believed in myself. And I had a lot of love and support. So I grew up unfortunate, but like I still was taught ways through others, but I didn't use it in a good way. It was a very manipulating, surviving, like I need food, I need money, like I want things, and I use people. So and that's a common theme throughout my whole life. I use and abuse absolute everything and everyone. So but for me, like there's a lot of suffering and a lot of pain from my past. But like it wasn't like all bad. Like I still was amazing at sports. I still attracted to sports. I still did like amazing things. Like I joined like FBLA in high school, Future Business Leaders of America. Was always involved with like a lot of different things. I did anything to stay at school really and not have to go home. I went into drama and did a lot of plays.
That's
and
really
theater.
good that you were able to find hobbies and interests.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I was able to always definitely start things.
Yeah.
I was really good at starting a lot of things, never really great at finishing. Like,
okay, that's relatable.
I was recruited for JV varsity soccer at 7th grade. Was like very good. I was being groomed to just, kind of like bring them to the state champions every year. And my senior year, I decided to quit. Just because like I love the self-sabotage. I love to give up what I have good in my life. And it's just like I said, a common theme throughout my whole life. It is so consistent, like just throwing like opportunities and good things away. Like I didn't like good. Like I was so used to negativity and anger.
That was the normal, yeah.
Yeah, like I had a hard time accepting anything that was good for me. And it was just, it affected like who I was supposed to be, and it dragged out an unnecessary life, like 17 years of use without skipping a day.
So tell us about that. When did the use creep
So like
in?
this here and there started young, 9 years old, 8 years old, like a shot on like New Year's Eve with my dad, or, hanging out with my uncles, or just like little things here and there. Never took off. I was still, fear still like stopped me from using completely and just falling into it, because I was still fearful of parents. I was still fearful of like, like law and rules and like consequences. Even though I like to push it and be defiant, like I was still kind of like not as brave as I pretend to be. So it took me a while. Actually, it took my sister. I remember fighting with her one night, and she was just like, I got more friends with you, because she would party and do all these things. And, just like little statements like that would, make me upset, and I would emotionally react. And like, well, I'll show you, and then I'll go make all those same types of friends that you have, So I left the drama, the soccer, the FBLA kind of people, and I went to, the party and showed everyone I'm the life of the party. And I showed her real well. I ended up in rehab my senior year in high school, shortly after that. And I just, it hit hard. Like it took off from me. I didn't really understand like the path I was on. I didn't understand like all these things that like what it was leading to. I didn't understand I had a problem with alcohol. I didn't understand I had a problem with drugs. I was in rehab. I had to glorify my stories. I had to lie just to hang, because I was 18 years old. Their stories were intense. So I had to, spice mine up just to fit in, just to feel accepted and belong. But I remember a lot of them saying like, hey, it's such a blessing that you're here at this age to be able to learn, because I'm 40 years old and I still can't get it.
Right.
But that just went over my head. I didn't care. I got out of school for a month. I didn't have to do any homework. They excused it. I still was able to graduate that year. But for me, it didn't take off. I returned to school that year, my senior year, and I remember getting a fight in school, someone called me a crackhead or something, or said something like that. And I just remember losing it, getting in a fight in high school. So I got in trouble with cops a lot. I was even though I wasn't as brave as I pretended to be, I still had quite the mouth on me, and I would still react physically and emotionally all the time. I always had something to say. I always thought I was the smartest one in the room. And I kind of was good at getting to know people and letting them in enough for me to use whatever they gave me against them. So I was a good shit talker, nonetheless. So like for me, everything was personal. Throughout my whole life, everything felt personal. Cops arresting me for breaking the law felt personal. Like teachers, suspended me for calling them, an inappropriate name in front of everyone. Felt personal. Everything felt so personal my whole life. And it's funny to look back on it. Like it's so crazy. Like I never really looked at oh well, Kyle, maybe you just breaking the law. Maybe that's why they're at you, or maybe you're doing something wrong. Like no, it was personal. They didn't like me.
Right.
They didn't like.
They were out to get you.
They were out to get me.
Right.
Like they wanted me to suffer just like everyone else in my life. And it was never anything of what I was doing wrong. So I've honestly never really said that, but I just thought of it just now. Just I took, everything was personal. Everything that anyone's done to me in my life is personal, whether it was or not. And I kind of just lived by that. And so long story short, for high school, I ended up getting in more fights. I was very reactive. I'm an emotional person, so my emotions are heavy. Plus, I'm an empath, so I take on people's emotions. And when I'm not able to respond with words, my emotion takes over. I'm gonna blow up and get physical. And so I was charged a couple simple assaults in high school, and the cops are always, it was always personal. They wanted to always, they would make comments the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. I remember being arrested one time, and the cop was just he's running his mouth calling me really inappropriate names, but I was doing the same thing back. And he's like, hey, listen, I can take your handcuffs off me right now if you want to get tough. So it was a lot of small town, probably not by the book cop activity, so that's why I always felt personal. But not to say that I did it didn't go undeserving. I definitely loved to run my mouth and push the buttons. But
so tell us a little bit about the progression. I got about 15 minutes left, so I want to hear about the progression, what it led to, and then we've got to get into the recovery.
Okay, yeah. So for me, I started drugs heavily, my junior, senior year. And
So do you want to tell us what kind of drugs?
I started with marijuana.
Okay.
And then it turned into crack cocaine
Right, in high school.
that same year in high school.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. For me, coke and crack was really helpful to numb the pain.
Yeah.
And I carried a lot of it.
Yeah.
I never understood how to let go of anything back then. So
Right.
I held on to a lot of pain that most probably wouldn't hold on to or understand how to deal with. So it progressed heavily. I was court ordered to go to Job Corps for the fights. They gave me options hey, you want to go to this little soft place up in Vermont or New Hampshire? I'm no, I want to go to the one in Mass and Springfield. And so I went there and I learned real quick. I'm a survivor. I know how to evolve and adapt. And down there, I had to learn quick. It was all the city kids from all the major cities on the East Coast. And it was a different world from my, small town New Hampshire life.
Right.
So I did what I had to do to survive down there. But I was getting high every day. I had roommates that, were into the heroin. And I remember them injecting me. I didn't really understand any of that. They did it for me.
Yeah.
And then just getting really addicted to the Oxycontin. And then, thinking that was my life, and selling drugs and then bringing it home, and then, bringing it to my friends back from home and infecting their lives with all I learned, which I learned a lot from. I learned how to use drugs. I learned how to steal from Walmart. I learned how to, scam eBay or the government, and these things that like I just did. Like,
Mm-hmm.
but I also, you know, graduated in Job Corps first in my class for a bricklayer. So I was top of the class for Mason. So I was very good at I know how to do things. I just didn't really want to do anything.
Yeah.
I know how to get by and how to please everyone. I know how to, you know, show up, but it was a struggle because I was heavily involved in drugs and I didn't know the true effect. Luckily, I was still young and I still had that energy somehow to keep pushing, and I had enough heart, but
For me, it was just always the shortcut. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just always take that shortcut. So I'm very capable, but I always took the easy route. So
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a lot of easy routes for me through my whole life.
Yeah. So Job Corps, you graduated.
Yep, I did.
And then
I
what?
got accepted to the Bricklayers Union in Boston. They had 300 applicants. They accepted 30 people for the apprenticeship. I went home back to Berlin, and I kept getting high. You know, I was supposed to pass a drug test and all those things. I even drove all the way down. I hit traffic. I didn't understand traffic. I'm not from an area where you have traffic and you know, rush hour. And I was late. And I remember the guy saying, "If you're late, don't bother showing up." So I went all the way down to Boston. I got to the parking lot extremely late. I had drugs on me, and I sat there and I cried. I was too fearful to go in and face and listen, this is my first time driving down here. I'm late, and do whatever it needed to fall through with it. I literally put my car back in drive, and I drove all the way back up to New Hampshire. I got high. I cried the whole way home, and I just threw away an opportunity at that time that probably would have been pretty positive for me, pretty good.
Yeah.
You know, start of a career of some sort. But I didn't give it a shot. I threw it away.
Yeah. Were you going to pass the drug test?
With a
Okay.
urine that I had.
Yeah. I got you.
Yeah.
So, you know, what happened? What was the catalyst for change for you?
To what started my recovery or why I'm sober
Yeah,
today?
the rock bottom kind of story.
God,
you
rock
know?
bottom. So many of them.
Yeah.
It's hard to pinpoint it.
So that turning point, you know.
For me, it was literally losing absolutely everything and everyone I love, which includes obviously I accumulated a lot throughout the years. You know, letting go of that stuff. I did 6 years altogether incarcerated out of 10 years in the last decade.
Oh wow.
So I broke a lot of laws and I did a lot of illegal activity. So I lost my children also during that time. So I lost all them. I lost everything I knew, everything that I thought I created for myself and that I needed. And even then, I still didn't want to get sober. I didn't have the energy to. I thought I lived the life that I was supposed to. My life was being stuck on probation, in and out of prison and jail. Stuck in this addiction. That was it. That's all I had to offer. I was trying to find the best ways to live that life.
Yeah.
And then it just it escalated. I lost even more. I always kept a little bit of hope on me because if I didn't have any hope, I probably wouldn't have fought each day to live because there was many days I didn't want to. So for me, I lost everything, and then man, it still took a while to really turn around.
Yeah.
Because I didn't understand this. I've been living my way my whole life for 32 years.
Yeah.
So
the fact that there's even another way is
was incredible. It was foreign to me.
Foreign,
and I'm still a newborn baby to it too.
Right.
It took me getting kicked out of more treatment centers.
Yeah.
But even though I got kicked out, they still kept me because they liked me because I was good at manipulating and getting my way.
Yeah.
But I still ended up on the streets in Dover, which I got kicked at a Turning Point. It was boot camp for recovery. And I remember walking into the therapist's office. Her name was Chris, and she was just really intense. And she's just get the hell out of my office till you find your truth. She finally kicked me out for using drugs, but she got that one. And then there I am in Dover, just homeless. I don't really know the area down here.
Yeah.
I know Manchester well. And I did one of those Facebook cries, when you're just like, oh, help me, poor me, get me home.
Yeah.
And then an old, I'm gonna say friend, but he actually was. Our families were kind of like rivals, enemies.
Okay.
Reached out and said, how willing, asked me a bunch of weird, annoying questions.
Yeah.
How willing are you?
Yep.
I'm like, yeah, at this point, I'm willing to do anything just to, find a roof over my head. So Andy Mosier, he reached out to me.
Yeah.
And he had his house captain at the time reach out to me because he knew we were enemies, and he was scared that if he offered me a bed, I would not take it.
Right.
But I knew it was his house all the time, so that's something I told him later.
Yeah.
So I did take the bed that he offered that night where I was homeless, which was in April of 2019. Someone from Dover dropped me off at our jam house, where I went into a house that I didn't really understand. I didn't really know much about sober living. I never paid attention.
Had you ever been to any
aftercare.
AA meetings or?
Yes, so I did.
Because you've done a bunch of treatment.
So I did a lot of AA.
Okay.
Through like court and all that.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I used to go in there and just
Yeah.
judge it.
Yeah.
I'd go in there and talk shit, and then I'd run real quick so they couldn't respond. I poke holes in everything I believed. I circled God every time it was in the big book and said, "This is not about God."
Yeah.
I was very defiant. I was a shithead.
Yeah.
So I was very familiar with AA.
Okay.
I just was not familiar with working on myself and letting go of the pain.
Right.
Or the step work. So
Right.
I was good at AA. I was good at meetings.
Right. But the step work, no. Right.
I didn't know any of that.
Yeah, I had never even picked it up, really. So
Yeah.
I relate.
I don't like work. I didn't do homework in high school. I didn't have to because of sports. And so doing homework later in my life was a lot to ask of me.
Right.
Yeah.
So you went to Andy's house.
Yep.
Tell us about that.
So I went in there a couple weeks. He scholarshiped me. I didn't have anything. I haven't worked in 10 years. The rehab called me back and said, "Hey, we'll take you back." And I was almost convinced myself to go back because there I'm protected. I'm in a bubble.
Right.
I don't have to be responsible. They pay my rent. I can get a job. I can just keep being me, and I don't have to do anything for myself.
Right.
Luckily, I surrounded myself with winners when I moved to Andy's house immediately. Vincent was one of them where I attracted to like who they were and what they like were doing. And so that house offered accountability, and it's very strong. And accountability is not fun. It's not easy to give, and it's not easy to receive. And that's what they offered, and it was all love. It was all like they cared about like what you're actually doing, and they challenged you. And I'm a person, I didn't like being challenged, but I'm so beaten up. I'm so like I didn't have anything left in me. And the last run I was on, it took me a month to be able to form a sentence after. So nothing was working for me that way. So I did have a little bit of willingness and open-mindedness. I was not perfect. I was still not interested in meetings. I got a job at E&R Cleaners where I got paid $10.50 an hour. My first job in 10 years. I worked 5 miles a day for 6 months to get to and from that job. I went to meetings almost every day. I got a sponsor. I started the step work. It took me 10 months to do my 4th step. I'm a procrastinator. And I started like doing these things that, I was being showed to do. And it took a while, but it affected me. I struggle with the higher power, but in honesty, I use the terminology God today. I'm not going to like explain what it is. It's just, I like the term God, and I definitely believe in a higher power today. And he's been there my whole life. That's the only reason why I'm still alive today. And it just kind of took off. It was a lot of growing. It was a lot of pain. It was a lot of letting things go, but it was a lot of accomplishments. Like I had a brotherhood now. I had like a very family-oriented house. I had people that took me in and like showed me a better way of living. And I attracted it so much. I was with it. I was comfortable at that house. I was comfortable with like the people around me. Even though we pushed each other to be uncomfortable, like it was still comfortable for me to be uncomfortable at that point. And I went through a lot of different things, by getting my kids back in my life, getting off probation, getting felonies dropped, getting new job employment, becoming, you know, obviously like a manager of the house and a leader to others. And, you know, getting my license after 9 years of not having one, getting a vehicle. Like I achieved so much, and I sometimes forget that, like where I was to where I am today, because today, like I could still fall backwards. Like I still need, you know, I still like self-seek. I still need validation. I still can hit pain. I still can forget like what's important, like how much work needs to go in me daily, or and it's the spirituality for me. I have to refill that daily. You know, I work with a lot of people in early recovery, so I'm the sum of the 5 people I surround myself with. If I'm only surrounding myself with the people that I work with, then I'm not doing good for myself. So I have to remember to keep. And that's what's good about, you know, being RGM is like I have a good family. I have a good like network of people that will hold me accountable, even though I'm not a fan of it, and it will push me to be better like each day. Yeah, which is not fun all the time. Like I want to be left alone a lot of days, but like I'm truly blessed to like be where I am today, and I'm blessed to have the people in my life today, like that actually care and want to see me succeed. Because I never believed in it. Like I held on to an old picture of my life, like a canvas of like what I wanted back. I wanted the ex back. I wanted my kids in my life 24/7. I wanted things a certain way. And I was able to throw that away. And now I'm just here, just painting a whole new canvas of like, my life is different today, and that's okay. Like I'm an adult, I'm a man, I'm a father today, I'm a brother. I'm someone that, you know, I'm a man in recovery.
You're about to be an uncle too, right? Or are you already?
Yeah, my sister's about to have a child. On my birthday is the due date, September 19th.
That's really cool.
So,
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's incredible, like the journey I've been through and everything I've gone through, and I still learn today. Like I said earlier, I'm a newborn of like living this life. Like to live the life I'm living today is going to take the rest of my life practicing, because I know the old ways very much, and they loved it. The old Kyle loves the surface. Like, there's no like putting him away forever. It's just kind of like, who do I want to be today? Yeah. Who do I want to be for my daughters? Right. Because they worship the ground I stood on. So who do I want to be? Yeah. And you know, I want to go to bed each night like feeling good about myself, and not every night's perfect, and we're very human in our ways, but like I'm so happy to be where I am today.
Well, thank you so much for coming and being so open and honest with us. And it was great to learn about you and your story. And we want to thank all of you for watching tonight, and we will see you next time.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.